Lead and Empower Her with Dr. Julie Ducharme, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Lead and Empower Her with Dr. Julie Ducharme is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Dr. Julie Ducharme.
Hey, are you looking to scale your business from 5 figures to 6 figures or 6 figures to 7 figures? If you are, I have the perfect thing for you. What I want you to do today is I want you to go download a book. This book is going to take you through my 3-pillar system. It's 100% free. All you have to do is go to growfast.cash. I say again, go to growfast.cash, and you're going to be able to download my free international best-selling book, which is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. You can take that book. It's going to help you scale your business to the next level. Again, go download it. Be good, be brief, be gone. Growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Julie Ducharme, back for another episode of She CEOs. This is one of my favorite podcasts where I get to interview women around the world and learn about what they're doing as a CEO of their company. The tricks, the tips, the barriers, the successes and failures are always a great story to tell that we can all learn from. So I'm really excited today. Before I get started with that, I want to make a mention of our She Talks events that are happening. So if you go to leadandempowerher.com, we have several events. One coming up right now is going to be on March 1st. It's our Rise Up conference in San Diego, California, with a really amazing lineup and women from around the world coming in as we've partnered with the G100 to help focus on mental health and wealth of women, wealth beyond money, and work-life balance. So I hope that you will check it out. You can also get a virtual ticket to watch it live if you cannot attend it, for a very affordable price of $25. We also have our She Talks mini conferences coming up, one in Denver in April, and one in Missoula, Montana in May. So make sure to go check those out and all the details on those. And we have another one in San Diego building out that's coming up very soon as well. So make sure you want to connect with us, see all the events going on. And of course, if you want to become a member and get a chance to have even more opportunities, that is on our website as well. So next, I want to introduce to you guys, my person today is Yetty Williams. She is a pioneering advocate for digital parenting, a coach, and the author of Digital Savvy Parenting, What the World Urgently Needs. With an MBA from Yale and certifications in life coaching, digital media marketing, and cyber psychology, she blends academic expertise with practical insights. As the founder of LagosMums, Yetty has reached over 1.5 million people globally, empowering families to embrace technology responsibly. She has trained over 5,000 individuals on online safety, championed digital equity, and helps women thrive through integrative coaching. She's been recognized by the Lagos State and Google, and Yetty remains committed to fostering international parenting and digital well-being. Yetty, welcome to the show.
Hello. Nice to be here, Julie.
Well, it's great to be here, and I think that everything you're doing is really important. As a mother, I deal with the digital side of the world and my children all the time, so I'm really excited to talk with you about all of those aspects and what you do to help parents and to help kids on that side of it. But before we get too far into that, I would love for you to talk to us about how you came about getting into these different roles and why. What's your why behind that?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. It's so great to be here. Let me go back in time. By the way, I'm one of those people that tell everyone that if you have an idea, take it and do something with it, because you just never know where it's going to take you. When I was in school and my undergrad and MBA, I would never have thought I would navigate into this space. I don't have a tech background at all. So this has really been born out of real life experience. So my why, when I became a new mom, I grew up in Nigeria. till 17. Moved to the US for undergrad, University of Pittsburgh. I worked for a few years. I got my MBA, stayed in America. And then after about 11 years in the US, I was newly married, and my husband and I decided, he's also Nigerian, we decided to move back to Nigeria. So that's when I went back to Nigeria as almost 27, something like that, 27-year-old who had been away from home for a while. And I found that I had a lot of questions about motherhood, about work-life harmony or balance, whichever one you call it. I questioned the idea of having to choose between, a wholesome family life and a career that I enjoyed. So I found myself asking questions, pushing the envelope, and a lot of the things I would find online then about what it meant to be a mother and to raise my children, or then my daughter. A lot of the results online were taking me to websites in the US, in UK. Now, this is a Nigerian African woman who's gone to the US, come back to Nigeria, and I didn't feel like a lot of the information was relevant to me as a local woman. So I said, you know what, I'm sure there are other mothers out there who probably have questions about motherhood, work, life, relationships, and all of that. Why don't I start a website, that's going to pull us all together? And back then, remember, blogging had just started. This is my daughter is now 17. So this is many, many, many years ago, over a decade ago. And that was really how I started this website called LagosMums. The idea being to have a blog that would allow us to communicate as mothers who were raising children in a digital world. Even then, I could tell that technology was going to play a big part in our lives. I just didn't know in what direction it would take me. So basically, that was how everything got birthed. I started this website. I had always loved writing, right? So that's basically how I started. And as they say, which I'm sure we'll get into, the rest is history, because I recognized that I loved providing information, I loved solving problems, and I loved being a source of encouragement for other people. So by the time I combined all of that, I really found a whole new purpose to being a woman in this world, to being a mother, to being a wife, and not losing myself in the process of doing all of those various things.
Mm. Well, I love that. And I love that you shared something that really hit me, was that talking about wanting to be a mom, but also wanting to have a career. And that really resonates with me. When I had my children, I struggled with the same issues of wanting to be a mom, pardon me, but at the same time, also wanting to have a career because I loved my career. And it was a real struggle. And I did not have a lot of women that I could collaborate with on that. Many of my girlfriends were stay-at-home moms, or they had a career. And so what I am glad to hear is that it seems to be that wherever we are at in the world, we as women, we as moms are dealing with that. And so I think that's important to recognize that it's normal, and that I think just like you, we can have both. I think we can be great moms. And even, I shifted my career to remote when my children were young, so I could be at home with my kids, but I was still working. And so finding that work-life balance was a struggle, especially when they're young, but it was important to me. And I wanted my children as well, especially my daughter, who's now 16, to understand that she can have both of those worlds. You can be a fantastic mom and love your children, and at the same time have a fantastic career. And I think that's something that's not preached very often. Throughout my career, there was a lot of people would say things to me, Yetty, like, well, how does your husband feel about someone else raising your kids since you're working right now? And I'd go, no one else is raising my children. Sure, there's someone watching them for a couple hours, and I would get questions like that all the time. And it was really shocking to me how people didn't think I could be a mom and have a career. They kept pushing me to pick one or the other. And I really kind of wanted to defy the odds on that. So I appreciate that you share that, because that's still today, and just at least in my opinion here in my world, that's still not a very popular notion. There's still a real push that it's one or the other. And another thing you mentioned was digital. And, I have to tell you, I want to dig deeper into what the digital side is, but if it has anything to do with social media, My daughter who's 16 and my son who's 13, actually, they do not have social media. I don't allow them to have it because I don't think that they need it right now in their lives to enhance their lives. I feel like it probably would not help. So people are really shocked that my kids don't have social media. But I've been very honest with them about what's on social media and the dangers and also the negativity. Now I use social media, of course, because I have businesses and I have to run businesses, and that's how we get it out. But I want to dig into the digital parenting because my husband also is an elementary teacher, has dealt a lot with dealing with parents and kids in the digital side. So dig a little deeper with me on what exactly, when you talk about digital parenting and being a digital parenting coach, what that entails.
Yeah. So after starting LagosMums, and thanks for sharing that background, one of the things I've recognized is no matter where you're from, there's certain things that bind us. There's certain things that are the same thing. Every parent, every mother wants the same thing for her children. She wants to raise responsible adults who are going to thrive in the world, period, right? The question really is if you're going somewhere, you put your address in the GPS, it might take you through different routes, but you're hoping to get to the same destination. I think it's the same thing. How we do it is different. And, we happen to live in a very digital world. So similar with me, when I started my business, I started using technology. We are older than Instagram. So I remember back then having to figure all this stuff out myself, And so as we started raising children, I recognized that, what? This is just a different playing field. And there was a particular course I took, one of those free courses on Coursera or something, and it was by Jeffrey Sachs. And I remember that it was one of the most life-changing free courses. I wish I studied this much when I was in university, but I didn't. What's clear sometimes is that when you're passionate, you start finding the content that's going to move you. So basically, in this particular course, the few things I took away was the fact that we are living in the fourth industrial revolution. It's not about whether it's good or bad. It is what it is. And if we trace it back to the first industrial revolution, when the steam engine started and people could go far away from home, that's when, life started moving away from me, myself, and my family just staying in one particular location. So if we look at that from the first to the second to the third to the fourth, what it is that we're living in a time that is driven by technology really, really fast. And we are the last generation who remember a life pre-digital, right? So by default, there is a tension because we don't know what it's like to grow up on the streets of social media. We don't know what it's like to constantly be suffering from FOMO, fear of missing out, because everybody else's life on social looks so much more flashy than yours. So as a parent, I recognize that, something has to be different about how we're preparing our children, not for the past we knew, but for the future that keeps evolving. And so I found myself really asking a lot of questions about the role technology plays. Then I got certified as a life coach. I really loved helping families and parents and mothers. And I found that for a mother to be successful in her work life, she had to have the home in order. There's no separation. If your home and family life is not in harmony and going well, it's very difficult to thrive at work and vice versa. So I found myself really niching down on that space. And I found myself very fascinated about the role that technology plays. That's why I call myself a responsible digital advocate, meaning that it's about advocating for us to use it right. So I say all of that to recognize that technology is here for good. It's not going anywhere. It keeps evolving, rather than become dinosaurs where our children don't want to communicate with us because they feel we're always going to be judging or nagging. I think it was really important for us to learn how to evolve with this powerful tool. So that said, I then got training in digital media marketing. I got training in cyber psychology and online safety and child safeguarding so that I'm able to equip my parents with the information they need to make informed choices. So for example, you've delayed social media for your children. Great, right? But guess what? They are going to get in at some point. So for someone like you, the conversations should start being, all right, at what point is my maybe 16-year-old going to evolve into having her first social media experiences? And I'm sure she's probably experienced it in some way, probably from friends and all of that. But, as her own person, your conversation now should be evolving her into that. So that's part of what I do with parents is what is your unique family dynamic so that whatever age your child is, whether they've already gotten on or they haven't, or they've seen things they can't unsee, because that's a whole other, rabbit hole we could go down, is what happens when children stumble on stuff and they don't have the relationship with parents to talk about that. So digital parenting coaching is really equipping parents with the information, the toolkit, and the skill set to help prepare their children to be responsible in the digital landscape, whatever that means, whatever age they get on, whatever tools they're using, and making sure that as parents, we are a safe space so that our children will always come to us first, not when, but if they see something that's disturbing online.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. And it is true. We've had a lot of conversations with my daughter and my son about social media. Some of the concerns we've seen excessive amount of out here was sex trafficking and how important it was that, unfortunately, our kids had to understand it and know it, pardon me, at a young age so they knew how to combat it. And we've had a lot of conversations about that. Obviously, a lot of bullying takes place in social media, which my husband's seen a lot with the young kids he teaches. And, I hear everyone's got a phone. And so we really took a lot of precautions. My husband got a chance to get a lot of training with the county, the educational group. And it was really disturbing to him, like social media and tech and how kids, what was happening. And then there wasn't that, like you said, social responsibility of parents, making sure that the kids were educated and understanding. And in fact, we saw a lot of lack of understanding from parents in the digital world and how to combat and protect children and help them understand. So I think what you're doing is really important because technology is ever changing. Like you said, it's part of our lives. Our kids are going to use it at some point or will use it soon or are using it. They're going to use it in their businesses. Are they responsible? How do they deal with what they see? How do they filter? Right? We're finding that young women are incredibly affected by negative social media and bullying. And so it's such a thin line we walk. And it's something, like you said, we have to combat it. We have to talk about it. We have to educate. And we have to talk about how do you move forward with that? And like you said, I'm totally fine. Like I lose my phone all the time. Like that's a joke because, like where's my phone? I don't know. Right. But the younger generation never loses their phone. I mean, it's with them all the time. It's plugged in and charging. It's always. So I think it's so important for us to do that, especially parents, because I look at children and they don't always understand or know how to process something like we do. Right. So we see violence as an adult and we process it differently than a child does. Right. We see something inappropriate as adult and we process it different. And when we were young, we didn't have access to those images or those videos or the substantial amount of information overload. Oh my gosh, so much information. And we didn't have to figure out, is this real? Is this fit? What's right? And so I think what you're doing is so commendable and it's needed worldwide. The digital era is here and we have to know how to combat it. And I think that's important. I want to transition into work-life balance because that's actually a big theme of She Talks this year, is work-life balance for women. And we talked about earlier about, careers and children and having both of those. And you and I both know from having careers and children that work-life balance is tough. And I don't think it's ever going to be perfect. But what are some recommendations you can give to our listeners about how do we as women have a career, have kids, have it all, but still maintain some type of work-life balance for ourselves?
Looking to grow your business beyond 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures plus, what I want you to do is go download this book. The title is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. It will help you grow your business past 5, 6, and 7 figure. Go download the book today, growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash, and download the book for absolutely free.
Great question. What I believe, first of all, and what I share with a lot of my clients is, because I work a lot with women and families, is you can't have it all at the same level of priority at the same time, right? So just make peace with that. You can't have everything at the same time, at the same level of priority at the same time. Like, it just doesn't work. We have to get comfortable with owning our yeses, so we're not forced to say no to the things we really want to say yes to, right? And this really comes back to, how are we analyzing what's our values, beliefs, what's important in the season of life we're in. So, for example, the things I can do now with a 17 and 15-year-old is very, very different from when they were 5 and 3. Now, it would be ridiculous for me to not recognize that for myself and then beat myself up or compare myself to a mother out there who's showing a very different lifestyle, for example, because maybe her children are grown and she's an empty nester with no children at home. It's a very, very different dynamic. And I think as women, we're socialized to compare ourselves a lot. Then before we talk about the digital world, oh my goodness, digital well-being is a whole different conversation, because if you spend hours scrolling on social media, even as an adult, you have to check yourself, because you can get off and think, oh my God, how come everybody else who I went to high school with seems to be flying in a private jet? What's wrong with me? Right? So there's a lot of comparing going on naturally. So I think when it comes to work-life balance, you need to understand what works for you, what is important for your family in the season you are in. And I think it's so much about seasons. Life for me doesn't feel like a whole long haul, because I tend to break things down into seasons and chunks. So it helps me navigate what space and season am I in right now. There's so many things I'm looking forward to now for my next decade, because in my mind, parenting is a 16-year journey. At 16, you kind of have a finished product, right? Kind of, in my mind. So what my children need from me now is more mom as a coach, right? My role is changing, which means then I have more free time to do some other things that maybe I put on the shelf when they were younger and needed me more. And now I can start to explore those things. So I'm always very kind to myself, and I love myself, and I love the journey I'm on. I don't compare myself to anybody else. People ask me who's my competition. I'm like, nobody really. The sky is big enough. So I'll summarize by saying, recognize that you can't have it all at the same time. You have to be willing to own what you're saying yes to. So you're not forced to say no to the things you can't outsource, such as having quality time with your children. That you can outsource. So that's what I love to leave people with is, guess what? You have more power than you think you do. But if you let guilt eat you up, you're never going to feel like you're doing well enough or good enough.
I love that. And it's funny you mentioned guilt. And I wrote an article called The Mom's Guilt. And it talks about, how we as mothers often really guilt ourselves over things that we shouldn't. Oh, my house isn't clean enough. The laundry is not done. Oh, my children's not perfectly clothed, or this or this. And we give this expectation of ourselves that, we have to do everything so well and so perfectly. And when it's not, we must not be being a good mom. And, I talk about that, sometimes being a good mom means that the house is dirty, the laundry is dirty, but I'm spending time with my children. I'm making memories with them. I always like to talk about making memories with my kids. We put a big emphasis on traveling and doing a lot of fun stuff together, because toys are toys. They're going to break. They're going to lose them. But memories last forever. And so, I really look at that and think, sure, the dishes aren't done. The laundry's not done. The house might be dirty, but I'm playing with my children, making memories right now instead of fussing about all that. And so, I think as moms, and I think we do this all over the world, because I work with women all over the world, we all get that mom guilt. Oh, we're not doing enough, and I don't have this perfect. And so I think that's so important for you to point out that we have different seasons in life. I remember when my kids were little, I just desperately wanted naps. And I just, I wanted a moment so I could go take a shower or just go shopping without a child, But then people would say to me, enjoy this moment, right? And I'd go, why? I just want them to be independent. Now my kids are 13 and 17, and I go, okay, I get it. I kind of miss that young age, the little silly times together. And as you said, they're becoming these finished products where it is really now that we're coaching them in life versus, tending to those needs that they can't. And so I love that perspective. And I want to make sure that we touch on also your websites and everything you're doing, because this is all in your websites, the digital parenting, the work-life balance. You have your website. Well, there's two. I'm going to have Josh bring them up, our producer. So Josh, go ahead and bring up the first one. We want to make sure that our listeners and watchers get a chance to see everything that you're doing on here, because you do a lot of coaching. And you also have your book out, Digital Savvy Parenting, which I am excited to get and share with many of my parents, especially friends who have younger kids. I think this is a really important book. And what's the best way for them to get the book?
So the book is available on Amazon.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So they can just hop on there. For those of you who might not be watching, but you're driving right now, Digital Savvy Parenting is the title of it, by Yetty Williams. And we'll make sure that we put all these links in the posts that are going out. So if you're driving right now and you're like, I can't get that link, don't worry. You can go back to our page and get a hold of us. And also you do coaching. Do you do coaching internationally, nationally? Like, can someone reach out to you and do, if they're not in your area?
Absolutely. I do a lot of my coaching virtually, actually. So I'm happy to, anybody can reach out to me. I'm sure we'll share my socials, and that's the best way to contact me. And I offer different types of coaching based on the clients.
I have the website, LagosMums. And let's bring that up too, because I want to make sure that you get a chance to see that as well. This probably, I know it's specifically, for LagosMums, but I'm just curious, is there opportunities to create more communities like this in other parts of the world?
So absolutely, it's so interesting. When I started LagosMums, like I mentioned earlier, I was living in Lagos, Nigeria, and I was literally creating something that I thought I needed, and it grew into what's honestly now a global movement. And a lot of our visitors to the website are actually from, the US, UK, Germany, for some reason, is quite high in terms of our analytics of visitors to the website. So a lot of the content, to be honest, is globally relevant. The name just seems to geographically limit it, but a lot of the content will speak to you no matter where you are from. What I did find, though, was from a cultural perspective, there's some things that are very unique, right? To be a Nigerian woman, for example. So some of the content that might tend to that in terms of things like domestic care. We're able to get a lot of domestic support in Nigeria, but there's a whole process around making sure you hire right. So those might be the type of differences you would see, but otherwise, most of the content is relevant.
I love that. That's great. Because, I think that you have such great content, and, we have so many women in our network from around the world that I know are dealing exactly with that right now. So I love that they're able to look at that. And the last thing I want to touch on is we wanted to talk about designing your life for abundance. What does that mean when someone wants to design their life for abundance?
Yeah. So that particularly started when I started working with more women. When I started my coaching, I started working with a lot of, clients. And I never believed in coaching a woman in one dimension of her life. So, for example, I always balked at the idea of executive coaching, because that seemed to talk about just your career. But there's nothing like just one dimension to your life, right? So whenever I'm doing my intake sessions, it's bring your whole self to the table, right? And my coaching style is very integrative, which means that I'm trained in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I'm trained in cognitive behavioral therapy. So I'm able to bring in the interventions needed for the client in front of me, right? Coaching for me is really about helping to transform someone from where they are to where they want to be in a way that's sustainable and in a way that they then have the skill set they need and the toolkit they need to navigate every area of their life. So for me, that designing your life for abundance was basically having somebody sit in front of me and I'm able to ask them, at the end of this year, 5 years down the line, what do you want? What right now is stopping you from achieving that? And then we start to tease apart the limiting beliefs, right? Oh, I can't do this. I don't deserve that. All of those things. So helping somebody design their life is literally saying you are the driver of your car. Just the same way you could go down the I-95 or go down the I-78, whatever it is, to get to New Jersey from New York. It's the same way you can take different directions to get where you're headed, but it's important to know where you're headed so you can measure if you're making progress or not. What you don't measure, you can't do better. So for me, that's that concept. And I have an acronym I walk through from the A to the T. So abundant living, I have an acronym and I kind of walk people through that. So the first A, I'll just share that because of time, but the first A stands for your attitude. Like, what are you telling yourself? If you think you can't do it, guess what? You're right. If you think you can, guess what? You're right. So at the end of the day, it's what are you telling yourself? And let's start from there. So that's a little bit about that. And I've done it for myself. And I think that's why I'm so passionate to help people, because my goodness, I keep saying if I could achieve all of this and I was nothing special as a kid, believe me, then you can do it too.
Well, I love that, because I think that we all have to look at how can we be our best selves. And I think we're also oftentimes our worst critics, and we need someone who's there helping guide us in that. Because I know I've looked at pictures of myself or performances and gone like, oh, that's not good. And then I've got some friends going, what are you talking about? That was great. I think a lot of times is when we self-sabotage ourselves. We feel imposter syndrome, like we don't deserve to be at the table. And I love that you talk about different dimensions of our lives, because you're right. Like, just our business world is not our full, like my job is connected to my personal, who I am. It's connected to me as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, and so I like that you talk about the different dimensions of life, because really my work is affected by my personal life, even though people say, don't bring your personal life to the office. Of course we do. That's life, right? And so I agree that, if we want to have abundance in life, we have to be able to, as you said, the very first thing, attitude, right? The mind is so powerful. We can make ourselves sick. We can make ourselves accomplish the unthinkable, but it's all here in the mind, and I just think that's so important. And women in particular, very often I find are very hard on themselves versus our male counterparts who just go, yep, I'm going to go do that. As women, we have to analyze it. We have to think about it. Oh, I'm not trained in that. Maybe I can't. And so I think those are important aspects of that. So, and what's the best website for them to contact you if they want to get some of this amazing abundance in life coaching from you?
Yeah. So the best way would be my social at Yetty Williams on Instagram. That's the best way to get in touch with me, and then book a clarity call. I always start with a clarity call to make sure I'm the right person for you. And then from there, we take it. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, is there anything else going on? I want to remind everyone about your book that they can get on Amazon, but any other programs, events, or anything going on that we can let our listeners know about to follow up with you on?
Absolutely. So I happen to live in the UK now. I moved here about 4 years ago. So this is my third continent. And I'm having my first global event on International Women's Day here in central London. And it's going to be an amazing day of self-care, love, amazing conversations around accelerating our growth and, being the best version of yourself in a very nice private club that I joined in London. So that's something I'm planning, and I'm really excited. Looking forward to that. It'll be happening on Saturday, March 8th here in London. So if anybody listening happens to be in town or visiting, I would love to join an amazing group of women just edging themselves on, then I would be happy to invite them to join that.
Wonderful. And is that on your website? Where can they find that information at?
Yes. So the best thing to do is, once again, it's in my socials, Yetty Williams, at Yetty Williams on Instagram. There's a link in my bio. So the link in the bio will take them to get tickets for the event, will take them to book a clarity call to speak to me if they want me to offer coaching services to them as a woman or them as a mother, or if you want digital parenting. I always like doing something called a digital audit. So every family, let's just do an audit. What's going on digitally? By the time we do that, there are usually gaps that a family recognizes, like, actually, my child might not have a phone yet, but they have a smart television and they have a tablet. You know what? Actually, they have access to things online that I didn't think about. So I always enjoy doing that process. So we do something called a digital audit to just kind of see what's going on in your family dynamics. So whatever it is you want, my socials are the best way to get me. And then we can take it from there.
All right, perfect. Well, my last question for you as we come to the end of the podcast is, if you could go back to your younger self and give your younger self advice, what would it be?
Be flexible, because confidence comes from doing. So start doing whatever you want to do. The more you do it, the more confident you get. Failure is simply feedback. It didn't work. All right, what can I learn from that? I keep moving. So that's what I'll say is, Yetty, you can pivot as many times as you want. There are no rules. As long as you're being your authentic self, life will keep showing up and happening for you.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Well, it has been such a pleasure speaking with you. And in fact, this is the digital conversation. We've never had that on our show before. So I'm so glad that we're able to bring that out to moms, whether you've got young kids, old kids. There is a place for a conversation for that. And of course, just sharing your transparency of figuring out how to be a mom and a wife and have a career. I think it's so important for every woman to hear. So thank you so much for being on the show. And as I always say, live, love, laugh, and always be your authentic self.
Hey, we all want to scale our business. Hey, I have the answer for you today to help you do that. If you're looking to scale from 5, 6, even 7 figures and beyond, book called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. I'm going to give it to you for free. All you have to do is type in growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash, and you can download the book for absolutely free. I hope the book helps you this year. Take your business to the next level. Again, go grab the book, growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. I wish you the best and grow, scale, and win.
Thanks for listening to Lead and Empower Her with your host, Dr. Julie Ducharme. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.
There it is. Magnum. Holy moly.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
Dear God, it's beautiful.